I just saw a video on my For You page that said something like, allowing this person to continue to disappoint you is not a reflection of how big your heart is. It is a reflection of how weak your boundaries are. And I think that this is really the most perfect way to sum up an anxious attacher. I think I'm FA, but I lean heavily anxious. And I think, the anxious part of me and what I've seen out of anxious people is that I think it's really hard for us to see our own behavior realistically and how damaging it can be, because we will set aside our own needs to prioritize the needs of our partner. We are very self-sacrificing, whereas our partner will kind of, set aside our needs to prioritize their own needs, especially if they're avoidant. And so when we walk away or when they leave us, we kind of look like the good one in the relationship and they kind of look like the bad one. And because of that, I feel like it's really easy for us to walk away with this kind of martyr mentality. I know that I have definitely done that, where it's like, I gave him everything, I gave her everything, I gave them my whole heart. All I ever did was be empathetic and kind and compassionate, and they just used me and threw it away. And I'm not saying those feelings aren't valid, because they totally are. Your pain is valid, and it's absolutely horrific what avoidant people can do or what unavailable people can do, because they are also unhealed. But we have to understand that that part of us that is so empathetic and continues giving and giving and giving to the other person and being so kind and accommodating, we think that that's just us being a really good person, a really, really great partner. But the reality is, what's actually happening there is that we are trying to fill a void inside of ourselves. There are underlying motives to our behavior. It doesn't mean we're bad people or that we're doing inherently bad things at all. We want to make our partner happy. We love them. But when you have insecure attachment, particularly anxious attachment, and you are entering relationships from, a place of lack, you are wanting this person to kind of fill that void, and you're so afraid of them leaving or something going wrong that you continue to kind of weaken your boundaries more and more over time. So you start out where you're like, oh, I'd never accept it if they did this. And then they do that and you're like, well, we can't break up because I don't want to be alone. I don't want to lose them. So you weaken that boundary, and then it gets more and more. And by the end of the relationship, you realize that you've put up with so much and you've been disappointed so many times, yet you're still hanging on. You're still trying to make it work. You're still trying to control outcomes in this relationship. And even after they have left and are essentially saying to you, I do not want you. I do not want to be with you. No matter what the reasons are, we can dissect the reasons and we can understand that it's not personal, and it isn't. But regardless of that, they left. And we still obsess in our minds and become so hypervigilant trying to figure out how to get them back, how to get someone back that not only left us and doesn't want to be with us, but barely wanted to be with us when we were with them. And that is a sign that we have a lot of work to do on ourselves. And I think a lot of anxious people point the finger at avoidance and say, if the avoidant would only go to therapy and then come back, everything would be great. Because we don't perceive ourselves as being the ones with the problem, because we perceive ourselves as very kind and empathetic. But we are self-sabotagers. We sacrifice our own needs. We hurt ourselves in every relationship. We don't value ourselves. We value the other person way more. And that should be the main focus of our healing. That should be the main thing we focus on after the avoidant leaves, is how do I get back to myself? How do I become a whole person again, so I never, ever, ever have to feel like this ever again?